All right. All right. So as we get started, I'm going to just take a moment to collectively thank everyone for being here in my writing projects and my journey of exploring how we can better ourselves as human beings and change our habits on the internet as well. So let's take a moment and everyone just close your eyes for a moment and feel your butt making contact with the ground or with the chair or wherever you're sitting. And sit up as tall and straight as you can. Relax your jaw. Separate your teeth. Relax your tongue and lift your chin a little bit and open the back of your throat. Just relax your tongue and let the tongue fall back into the mouth. And open the space in between the teeth. So this is actually a stress release exercise. Take your ear to the right shoulder. And take your other ear to the left shoulder. And then bring your head back to neutral. And take your head down. And bring the chin towards the chest, but pull the shoulders back just a little bit. Bring your head back to neutral. Open your eyes. Give yourself a shake. So what I'm trying to do is just teach somatics of like literally being plugged into our body and stepping into our authority. And it's totally fine that you turn your camera off to do that because it is a bit awkward. But it's really so that we can speak from a place of authenticity. So today's podcast, friends and dear readers and listeners and people on the internet, I am welcoming everyone back. And buckle up because today we're diving into some big astro shifts that I would like to cover that's happening in 2025. And this is the kind of stuff that makes history books. And it's actually already repeated in history. So astrology is a very good thing and resource to have at this moment because we can take some notes. If you're paying attention and you already know, there is a collapse effectively happening now. It's fast for some and it's slow for others, depending on the frequency that you're vibrating on. And guess what? That's the golden escalator that Trump rode down back in 2015. If you guys remember that moment, for me, that moment was like the plug of the seed of fascism coming back. For me, it was so clear seeing him roll down and then announce his bid to presidency that day. The whole aesthetic of it was very upsetting because it was really showing how the collapse of America falling to a hyper-capitalistic narrative had been secured. So now that we're in this full-blown American Pluto return, the old systems are crumbling, the billionaires are hoarding the wealth, and fear is being weaponized like never before. But here's the thing. So Pluto is ripping off the veil. It's forcing us to see what's been in front of us all along. All of this shadow side elements and all of the dark nature wrongdoings and criminal activities, those are all coming to surface. And that's what this year is really about. The astrology shows that all of that disillusionment is going to come to surface. These conspiracy theories hopefully will be a little bit more clear. The power of transforming into something new, that's the power of Pluto. So the question is are we all ready for this, right? And using the word collapse, using the words like fascism, this is really hard for a lot of people to accept because it just gives such an apocalyptic worldview of things right now. And we don't need to get lost in that. Instead, we're just here to hold space. So the astrology also of 2025 is showing us that we're in this liminal year of a collapsing world where we're held in this space of reflection and observation, where we can actually make change and do something about it. So the liminal space is that space in between, the pause before the next step. So if you've read any of my work here, you know that I've written about this before. So here's the refresher. The liminal space is that hang time in between two moments where reflection, observation, and ultimately ascertainment is made possible. And that's where transformation can happen. So this is the space, what was and what will be. And we will be here for most of 2025, surfing through Neptune's transit out of Pisces and into Aries. And Neptune is all about unveiling illusions. So people are waking up and they are hearing or seeing a different reality and understanding that a different world can be made possible. Some are ready to actually step into their purpose, and others are actually clinging on to these old illusions. So the dangerous part is those with unlimited resources are doing the same, using their wealth and their influence to manipulate reality in their favor. And so that's what we're here for today, to fight the global populist. I never really knew that there was a label behind that until just recently. And did I actually say, yes, they are global populists. So they are the oligarchs, the billionaire class that's hoarding the world's resources and wealth right now. So this just isn't about the USA and what's happening in astrology. This is actually a worldwide phenomenon that's happening. The transits in space, of course, coordinate, and Pluto moving into Aquarius is decades long in rollout. So progress is slow and change is slow. So yeah, what should we do? Before we go into full doomsday mode, there is some good news. We all have personal agency. So this is the beauty of Aquarius. We are in current Aquarius season. So think about all of your Aquarius friends and how like weirdly independently stubborn they are and how unique they are. And this is super fantastic to observe from their native star sign. So being weird, being authentic, stepping into your agency, that's really important right now for us to feel and to embody. You can go your own way and you can do what you like as long as you aren't, you know, a narcissist or a fascist. So this moment is not just about destruction, doom and gloom. It's about finding opportunity in the shadows. And if you know how to read the signs, you can position yourself on the right side of history here. So astrology, we use as a cosmic blueprint, a map, and I'll be talking in my future writings this year about where we can work with this energy to influence change and what we can do as a social resistance movement and using some of this cosmic energy to our favor in fighting and dismantling the patriarch. So why we're here, I have invited a few close resources and friends here to provide different perspectives that I have. We all have very unique stories because we're all located in different pockets of the world. So let's just jump right into it. I'd like to cover first what's happening in the US simply by reviewing this week's current event headlines. And maybe Jordan or Heather, since you guys have already been actively talking about this on your platforms, do you guys want to start with some of the executive orders that we're trying to flag and diffuse?
There's so many. Where do you begin, right? I mean, and I think that's the point, is that for the last 2 weeks in the United States, it has been a constant onslaught of action. And I think the thing that people are talking about the most is the creation of the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and you know, some of what they're doing sounds great, is great. It's they're doing some line item audits that I think most people agree were necessary, but they're just forcefully taking control of payment systems. I don't know if you have all seen, and maybe Jordan or Leslie can extrapolate on that a little bit more, but I mean, they tried to take over the Treasury's payment system. They're trying to access Social Security. And I understand like what they're trying to do, but the way that they're doing it, I think, is the problem.
Yeah, of course.
And then we've had, you know, a slew of other, you know, executive orders that there are two genders, men and women. Executive orders that men can't play in women's. I mean, it's, and what's been striking to me to see is how quickly corporations and other organizations have just fallen in line. So last week, one of the most recent was that Trump signed an executive order that biologically born men cannot play in women's sports. And within 5 minutes, the NCAA had their website updated. You know, these organizations can decide not to comply with those executive orders, but it's like they were looking for an excuse, in my view. So that's the start.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and I wanted to take a slightly different perspective, and just kind of go over the 14 points of fascism. I mean, obviously we've long been here in the US, but just a reminder for the people on this call and the listeners. So we have number 1, powerful and continuing nationalism. Number 2, disdain for the recognition of human rights. Number 3, identification of enemies, scapegoats as a unifying cause. Number 4, the supremacy of the military. Number 5, rampant sexism. Number 6, controlled mass media. 7, obsession with national security. Number 8, religion and government are intertwined. Number 9, corporate power is completely protected. Number 10, labor power is suppressed. Number 11, there's a disdain for intellectuals and the arts. Number 12, obsession with crime and punishment. Number 13, rampant cronyism and corruption. And number 14, fraudulent elections.
We're there.
They covered every single one of those items in numerous executive orders in 2 weeks.
So last year, was it that we podcasted and you guys taught me about 2025, Project 2025? It was the first time I was hearing about it. And within a month, it was all over everything, right? So this is it. Like these strategies have been in plan and action for a long ass time. The GQP or GOP has not been messing around for over a decade. I'm telling you, 2015, this was already secured. My question is for the Americans, especially from the European perspective, do the Americans see that this is a coup? Do the Americans understand that this is fascism
No,
coming to America?
no, a lot of them don't.
Not nearly enough of them.
And you have to understand that the fury with which Trump is doing all of this stuff is to get people to tune out. It's too much. It's too much for people.
So,
and honestly, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's straight out of the Hitler playbook, and this is not being hyperbolic. This is seriously what Hitler did. He implemented a strategy known as shock and awe, where he threw so much at the German people that it was impossible to keep up with all of it. And that's what Trump and this entire administration is doing already in the span of just over a week.
I think it's important also to look at like some of the things that they're doing that are actually what has been going on all along. Again, the Doge, government efficiency stuff, a lot of people agree with that. So all of the media focusing on that, people are tuning out because they agree. And then the thing about immigration, you know, the deportation they're getting a lot of news, but over half of Americans agree with that. So the media is focusing all on these issues, and that's what people are focused on, and they're tuning out all the rest of it. Because people can only take so much, right? People can only, information overload?
Yeah.
We're there.
Leslie, you have your hand up?
Can I just say something about the deportation thing? What a lot of people think is they're going to round these people up, put them on planes, and send them home. And I keep having to tell people, like, no, they're not. They're putting them in camps. They're putting them in prisons. You worry about having a labor force on the fields. We're not losing anything. They're going to get papers, documentation, put in prison, and then put back out on the fields. And I think that is like, people need to be hearing that and understanding that, because it's like, oh, they're going to go back to their country and then that's it. Yeah, it's rough down there, but they're not going to be here. Like, no, they're not going, quote unquote, home. This is home for them, but they're getting rounded up and put in prison. And I think that's what a lot of Americans aren't connecting. Because for some of us, it's like, this smells very 1930s Central Europe. And a lot of them don't understand that.
Yeah.
As Heather said, there's a lot of them that they believe in what they think is the core idea behind what is happening, and they're ignoring all the other details. So I'm on the board of an FQHC, which is a federally qualified health center. It's funded by 330 grant money. It's given to them every year. They get highly regulated by the HRSA. They were told any money, we were all told, any money's already approved and granted would not be touched. The day after the executive order, their portal was shut down. They had 30 days cash because they left their money in the portal. And on and off for 2 weeks now, that portal has been up and down, up and down. We're literally getting live updates as board members of that FQHC. So those 40-ish% that voted for him, that are still worshiping him and following him like the false idol he is, are not paying attention to the details. They're looking at that 30,000-foot view of this alleged mission and the goal and all of those things. So I think that's where one of our biggest challenges is. They're not listening to the details. They're calling it fake news. They're calling it lies. And of course, you know, the orange clown that they worship could do no wrong and say no wrong. So we have a long, very steep hill ahead of us for those of us that can't leave.
Heather, Jordan, where are you guys located? Just for the readers.
I'm in Oxnard, California, which I would call ground zero for some of this deportation activity. And to your point, Amanda, I put in the chat just last week, one of our city council people, her day job is, she does programming for a sanctuary city, not here, not Oxnard. Oxnard is not a sanctuary city, but she showed up to work last week and she said everything was gone in the bank account. Everything was gone. And Oxnard, well, Ventura County has 60 to 70,000 people that are here undocumented. And the craziest thing to see are the number of people who are Latino who are cheering on the deportations.
What does that say? All right. So Amanda, tell us where you're from.
Southwest Missouri.
Yeah. So I had recently saw your Facebook post and caught up on your page because you are clearing out and cleaning up and shedding some skin, doing the snake of the year thing. And and the comments that people say on your post when you are there just to try to promote more input and share awareness, and you get heavily attacked. And I look at these comments that come out from people in Missouri and my hometown, and they're quite, the MAGA people, they're quite angry. And I'm a little concerned with the lack of gun control in America, like what can come out of this, right? Like when people really start to create mass paranoia and panic, it's becoming a scary thing, right? And this isn't just limited to a Missouri thing. I'm talking urban populations are dealing with this as well. But this level of division that's also occurring right now is somewhat passive aggressively simmering, where it's like those that really openly want to support Trump maybe don't do it unless they are MAGA. And so you have a lot of people that you know are supporting Trump, and you can't even talk to them because of politics and the dividing factor there. And how hard that must be for your interpersonal relationships, for your working relationships, for just trying to like navigate your daily life, right? This level of division and polarity. That's also the intention, I think, behind Trump, is he's the disruptor. He's wanting that level of chaos, that level of division.
Yes, and I think to Heather's point, and then Jordan, I'll yield to you. I think to Heather's point as well, you know, she was talking about seeing the Latinos who are supporting the deportation. It's very similar to, you know, having individuals that I know that are law enforcement who are supporting the pardon of all of those during the January 6th. Like I can't connect those dots. It doesn't make sense. Like you're okay with people being pardoned who literally physically attacked your brothers who are state capitol. Like to Heather's point, I can't figure that out. That should make you angry. That should make you be. So it's literally we're cultish, where he can do no wrong and we will follow him no matter what. Sorry, Jordan, go ahead. Yes, he has his hand raised.
Just a quick point. It's never been more imperative right now than for people to collectively acknowledge the importance of class consciousness, because it's now or never. You know, people have much more in common than they do with a climate refugee than they ever will with the billionaire class. And that's what it's always been. It's the billionaires and the rich against the poor.
I agree with that. At this time, we are seeing the middle class just completely annihilated, right? That they're diffusing the wealth among the middle class, and they're just making a bourgeoisie and the serfs. What's it called, Mark? I don't know the terminology for it, but the division there is huge as well. And speaking of these internment camps, or what I call concentration camps, when I saw a headline that Trump was trying to invade Greenland or take over Greenland, you know what signaled to me first and foremost is he plans to build prisons there, because you know what's happening in Greenland right now over the last decade? Serious climate change. The entire coast, southern coast of Greenland, going up both sides, completely inhabitable. You could build a really nice military base up there with landing strips and all. And then once you get everybody up there and trained, you can send them on to Mars and put colonies on Mars. Like, this is the billionaire disillusionment that we are suffering from right now. Who is going to stop this?
I also think that there's ambitions to extract the natural resources off of Greenland via natural gas and oil. This has always been a plan of the Trump administration, is to siphon absolutely every single resource that fossil fuels have available. And besides just a colonial project, it's all just tied into the billionaire interests related to the fossil fuel industry.
I agree.
Well, and you know, Trump has been talking in the last week about getting essential minerals from Canada, Greenland, and Ukraine. So wake up, people.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention.
Hi, Brian. You want to speak?
Yeah, I think I can now. Hey, everybody. Having some technical difficulties. Part of this goes back to the shock and awe, though, because if you hit somebody with an unreasonable request and then follow up with it with a much more reasonable request, out of subconscious guilt, they're more likely to acquiesce to it. So by saying we want to invade or take over your territory or your country, well, that's outrageous. Okay, well, we're going to, unless you give us favorable trading deals for your resources. But we're going to move our military up to the border as a threat. Going back to his supporters, I actually had a discussion with a police officer I know, and I was polite the whole time. I kept putting facts forth with sources, and finally he didn't have an answer. I said, well, you're a police officer. Don't you think people that have been found guilty of a crime should serve their sentence? I said, he's a felon. Well, those weren't felonies, I said. Well, he was found guilty. They were considered felonies at the trial. That was what the jury determined, and the judge sentenced. Don't want to hear what doesn't fit with their preconceived notions, because they've had 8 years of these mental gymnastics and cognitive dissonance. And after that amount of time, to try to go back, no, they have way too much mentally invested to admit the truth. It will take something drastic, such as Trump holding out a gun and blowing the brains out of their family member right next to them. Maybe they might change their mind.
I think that's a clear signal to the situation, dire situation we're in right now. Yeah.
Majority of people just don't care as long as they can make ends meet. Keep them poor and starving, they don't have the time to organize.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would also say I've seen a number of videos recently where, for lack of better words, it's fuck around and find out. So these Trump supporters are starting to figure out that the policies that they voted for and supported are starting to impact them personally. So now they care. And Americans are excellent at this, by the way. They don't seem to give a shit about other people until they're personally impacted economically. So, like, for example, a farmer that has land in Florida and California, he's now finding out that he's losing money because of all the tariff policies. Never mind the workers that he has that are being fucking deported. It's that he personally is losing out on income. So there's no, like, it's horrible that in this country in particular, whenever we make an argument, it has to appeal to economic interests. It's never to morality.
Yeah, that's very true. I want to shift gears a little bit because I don't want to take too much time as we are talking really heavy topics and keeping things very intense. These are important conversations to have. Looking at this from our resident politician here on the call, he's not a politician anymore. He's lesser important than that, but equally important to me because I value his opinion. Mark, what is your perspective of this from the European perspective, looking in and knowing the doom that this could actually bring to America? It's a coup. What would you give as advice in this situation?
Yeah, thanks, Audra. Yeah, you're right. I'm not a politician anymore. I'm sleeping at the moment, a sleeping politician. I mean, I don't want to intrude into private grief because that's what it sounds like. It's a terrible situation in America, and our heart goes out to all our friends. I've got family there. My family were booked to go into the Titanic to move to America a long time ago, and it sank. As you know, we were booked on the second voyage, my family, so we never got on it. So I'm safe here in Europe for now. But I guess because of distance, we're seeing it in a slightly different way in Europe. And this doesn't give me any comfort saying this, but and I hate to say this, but it's a bit like, well, we told you so. And I know you probably told a lot of friends in America, like, we could see a slow motion car crash happening over the last 8 years. Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for 8 years or more, actually. But like, it happened during Trump 1. A lot of us thought he would get re-elected again. It happened during Biden. All the conditions were there for this to happen. And as Jordan said, the root cause of it is the fact that you're not dealing with the deep-seated structural and economic and social problems in America caused by the nature of your capitalist system that is eating itself and eating the very poorest and most vulnerable in your society without a safety net at all. Our capitalism in Europe isn't perfect, but at least, for example, we have free healthcare, affordable healthcare that no one would dare challenge. Yeah, and these are some universal rights that we in Europe will defend to the bitter end, that you in America sadly never had, and never will have if you allow the situation to continue. So some of what we're seeing is the Trump playbook just playing out, and it's like, we're not as shocked as you are, I don't think, because it's like, yep, he's doing that. He said he would. He's going to do it. I think that the difference this time is we're ready for him. This is where I'm more optimistic. I can sense now the tide is turning in Europe towards social democracy again, to more progressive values of solidarity, fairness, integrity, justice, opportunity for all. We're ready for his tariffs. We're ready for his bullying and his threats, and it will strengthen our resolve to stand up for the values that we believe in. And give you a few examples. A recent poll out last week: 94% of Europeans support climate action. 94% want the state and the member states and companies and businesses and citizens to tackle climate change, compared to what he's doing, pulling out of Paris and God knows what else. Another one is, which again, I'm not complacent here, but support for the EU is at a 17-year high now. Support for the euro is at the highest ever level. To me, this is just a reflection of Europeans saying, we do not want to become like America. Yeah, so it's a wake-up call, and I think Europeans are slowly waking up. And then final point, Audra, also good news, I would say, is that people are using the power of their pocket. Look at the Germans. The Germans are being bullied by Elon Musk, being told to vote for a bunch of Nazis. What are Germans doing? There's a 60% reduction in the sales of Tesla cars in Germany in a year. 60%. So his market share now is less than 10%. So he's feeling it where it really hurts him, not just his pocket, but his ego. So you've got to deal with it on the ground, and we're not underestimating the real threat he poses to places like Greenland, because he's going to invade somewhere. Gaza, Greenland, Panama. Okay, he's not going to invade them all, but he's going to pick one of them, isn't he, in the next year, let's say. We're not underestimating the risk. But I would just make that positive note that we are realizing as Europeans the values that we perhaps took for granted for the last 10, 20, 30, 80 years after the Second World War. Now we can see how at risk they are if we allow the Trumps to come to power in Europe. So the fight is on, and it really is. And we stand in solidarity with you. We know we've got a lot of work to do here in Europe because it's not perfect. But I think we are heeding the warning, and there is visible and evidence of signs that Europeans at last, after sleeping for decades, are beginning to wake up to the threat from fascism, the rise of the Nazis again, and the oligarchs.
Yeah, I was a little concerned this week when I saw the Hague Embassy post something that was very pro-Trump and quite propaganda-like, and the comments that came in on that post were very much like, what is this? I'm not following this. I'm not signing up for this fascist agenda. So I can see that the people are coming out, that the power is with the people right now. Problem is that we have so much censorship that I don't think that we stand much of a chance because we're pressed against time to really get our voices out there. And now it's the time to be organized, to find your place, to figure out which community organization you're going to be a part of, where you can start making local action and change, because that's where this starts, right? Not online. So there's all sorts of pockets of opportunity here, but it's like Heather was saying earlier, it's overwhelming. It's totally overwhelming. And that's part of the plan as well, is to overwhelm us and to desensitize us. Just so everybody goes numb, right? And everybody's in this like zombie mode. We already have seen that for the last 4 years because we're all completely traumatized from everything that's happened these last 5 years.
Well, I completely agree with Jordan about his point about, this is fascism. He went through the criteria. It clearly is fascism. I think, and I'm not complacent about this still, but I think the difference here in Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, is of course that we were occupied by the Nazis. We've experienced fascism firsthand until 1945. Southern Europe was run by dictators up until the 1970s. Look at Greece, Portugal, Spain with Franco. And let's not forget Eastern Europe. Our friends in Eastern and Central Europe were run but basically by fascists up until 1989 with the so-called Soviet Union occupying much of Eastern and Central Europe. So to us, fascism is a real thing. Some of us remember it. Some of our parents and all our grandparents remember what occupation, what fascism, what the Nazis did. And perhaps that's why we're a little bit more sensitive, a bit more alert to the threat. We won't buy the bullshit. Yeah. As I said, we've still got a battle to fight because these oligarchs aren't going to go away, are they, easily? But I also make this point. I think they're really overplaying their hand. This muzzle velocity strategy that Steve Bannon outlined, I think, a few years ago, which they're trying out, and what they're trying out in tariffs and the bullying. I mean, I think they're already overplaying their hand. That's how I'm seeing it as an outsider. I think the wheel's already coming off. I mean, it's not fooling anyone this time. It really isn't. Yeah, I mean, they've got to almost terrorize the world to be able to dominate the world. And all that's going to happen now is America's influence, like cutting all the budgets for US aid, which was founded incidentally by JFK to promote soft power around the world. Pulling the budgets are there. The Chinese are just going to move into that space. Same with tariffs as well. I mean, you're just going to, your economy, which has already squeezed a lot globally in the last 20, 30, 40 years, is going to be just squeezed further. That's the tragedy of what Trump is doing. I mean, far from delivering the promise of helping ordinary people are getting nothing out of the last 2 weeks, are they? What has he done for ordinary people in America the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Nothing. And that's the thing. He will do nothing for ordinary people for the next, or however long he remains alive.
Heather?
Like I said, he's been doing something for them. He's been owning the libs, and that's what they want. That's what his base wants. They want to be able to rub it in libs' faces, as they like to put it. And so they're getting that to start.
But this is going to incite civil war. We see that, right?
I think
So
some on the far
that's
right are
what I was
relishing that.
thinking. Yeah,
Sorry,
and I
Brian.
think yeah, what were we saying, Brian?
I think some on the far right are licking their lips, relishing that. So not only can they own some of the libs, they can use them for target practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what I was that's what I had raised my hand for, is same thing as Brian. I think that a lot of people view owning the libs as objectively winning. Like that's all they really wanted, right? But they're very comfortable. Like even though they complained about like the price cost of living and everything like that, it really didn't affect them too much, right? At the current levels. I think it's going to get much worse, and then it will affect them. To the point about civil war, though, I right now I have a really hard time seeing a civil war happening, and it's because so many people that talk about civil war or talk about revolution, they do it from behind their computers, but then they are totally unwilling to actually go out and do anything. They're unwilling to do anything. And I think the people that would get steamrolled by the American military, steamrolled in a heartbeat. So it's a I'm not sure what the solution is then, right? If you don't have anybody who's real like a formidable force of people who really and truly can get up and revolt against this, what do we do? And I think that's also one of the things that we're seeing, you know, Democrats, people in the Democratic Party, especially at the local level, they're horrified because they expected more resistance. And they're just seeing, the police let ICE come into town. They thought they were going to be protected. And then ICE rolled in and the police stand down. And they thought that, Congress had more power to, bust down the doors of the Department of Education and push their way through and stop it all. And the truth is they don't, and they're not going to. So I'll stop there.
Brian, do you want to finish or wrap up a point before we move on to Leslie?
But I don't think, it's not going to be like the American Civil War of the 1860s, state against state. It's more of urban versus rural. I would see infighting that happened in, say, the Baltics in the 90s, that kind of thing, if it did come to it. But most people, you're right, they're keyboard warriors. I mean, look at COVID. They couldn't make it 2 weeks without going to Texas Roadhouse when they just asked them to stay home for a while. No, it's not going to be this great, cool thing that the guys that go play Army on the weekend with their airsoft think it's going to be.
Yeah, good point. Leslie?
Heather's point brought me back to class consciousness. I just moved to a little town. I live in a rural county. I'm in San Luis Obispo County. I'm like 2 counties above where Heather is. And I just moved from the town I grew up in, which is more like urban, I suppose, for our county, to a town that's just north. And it is rural. It is conservative. It's quiet. And so I'm a little nervous having moved here, but I'm finding that I can connect with people through like class solidarity. Like, don't bring up Trump, don't bring up those big issues, just like find the thing in their life that's hurting them. And a lot of people have those things in common, and you just get in there. It's a slow burn, and it's going to get so much worse here. We just kind of have to buckle up and start slowly talking to our neighbors that we're not sure about talking to, and just find where you connect, because like there's no huge movement that's going to happen. I think it's going to be individuals connecting with other individuals that's going to save us, but it's going to take a long time. It's going to be years, and shit's going to get really bad for a little bit. I hate to be doom and gloom about it, but
No, but I totally agree with you. And you're right. It's a chain domino effect, a chain reaction and domino effect. It's really about random acts of kindness and extending that on an individual basis to build a community and to build a team effort. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. Amanda?
So similar to what Leslie was saying, I live in a fairly rural. I live in Audra's hometown, Southwest Missouri, a very large red state. The nearest one is Kansas. It's kind of purple. But anyways, I can say that there are a significant number of people in this area that are unhinged, that are batshit crazy. And 4 years ago, I saw it at a pro-choice rally where a grown-ass man beat a young lady with his protest picket stick. I have seen, we had added security at a rally yesterday to support persons of color and unrepresented minorities. There was a drag show yesterday that they added additional security support to. So from my perspective, I'm scared as fuck. I'm getting firearms, but I'm not going to give up. But there are unhinged people in my area, especially. As Audra said, you can see the people who are commenting on my Facebook. They're angry. They're former military. They're law enforcement officers. And I wouldn't be caught dead on a street knowing where several of them that have commented on my Facebook post, knowing where they're at. Unless I brought my kid's shotgun. And that's the point we're at. That's the point we're at. I take my signs down out of my yard when I travel for work because I don't trust the neighborhood and the city to not terrorize my children when I'm gone. It is not safe for those of us that speak up. I'm not going to stop speaking up. It embarrasses the shit out of my kids. I don't care. And they're like, you're the new Karen. I'm like, hell yeah, I am. And I'll be some more. But I can see we're going to go back to the bushwhacker days of the Nevada region. We're going to have small little bursts of where we're right in this region of some, north-south shit like we had before. And there will be a ton of small skirmishes. There will be protests where there are firearms and there are people attacking, etc. I have not gone to a protest or a rally in Joplin or Springfield area where I have not been armed myself or gone with someone who's armed. And that is not because I'm hyperbolic about it. That is because we have had people pull up with their shotguns in the back of their pickup in their good old Ford Ranger, ready to fire on us all. And we've had to call the police. We've had to have people who are armed to go down there and discuss with them. It's not safe being in these areas, but we just have to keep fighting the fight. And if nothing else, I get unfriended by a bunch of people who won't walk on the same side of the street as me. Good to be there. But that's from my perspective. I don't think we're going to have a full-on civil war, but I definitely think in some areas it's going to be ugly and uncomfortable for quite some time.
It's going to take a few years to let these themes die out, unfortunately. And everyone I'm seeing saying, oh my God, I can't handle this for 4 more years. You guys, it's going to be more like 4 to 10 years. And once you wrap your head around that and put a stoic mindset behind it, you're going to be okay, I promise. Brian and Leslie, I see you both in the queue. Who wants to speak first?
I just wanted to comment further on what Amanda said. The left needs to arm themselves 1,000%. And I can't emphasize that enough. It doesn't matter if you don't want them in your home, learn how to use one. We need to be ready. It's like going on a diet. This is not a quick fix. This is a lifestyle change. Buckle up.
Yeah. So Brian and I have had lots of gun safety talks before, and he and I grew up with guns in our hands from a young age, and we know not to disrespect a piece of machinery like that. So Brian, go ahead.
Leslie, I agree with you. And you're right, Audra. I don't think I told you the story. I won a shotgun at a Ducks Unlimited banquet that I went along with my dad to at the age of 3. And they gave me the shotgun. Obviously with parental supervision. But that's Missouri for you. Amanda, I'll disagree. The biggest dicks with trucks are Dodge Ram drivers. That's just my observation from many years. the ones that are insecure about the size won't drive a small pickup. They get the biggest thing they have and roll coal. But unfortunately, I agree. I'm encouraging people to get some firearms training. Also, take self-defense classes. And even if it's fighting dirty style, Krav Maga, that's one that I've looked at. It's fight dirty to get it over with as quickly as possible and get your ass out of there. But I do agree on the firearms training, because you don't bring a knife to a gunfight, and those rabid Trumpers are going to be armed. And if it's like unfortunately, I use the analogy, think like a video game. If you know how to use the same things they have, if they somehow lose theirs and you can pick them up, you know how to use it. I never want it to come to that, but better to be ready than not.
Thanks for the realistic conversations behind this. Mark, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just on the gun issue, I think it's a good illustration, really, that we're on a fork in the road, that America is going into an extreme form of capitalism, fascism, call it what you will. Europe, I predict, is going to go the other way. We saw the reaction in Sweden to the 11 innocent people who were brutally murdered the other day by a mad gunman. The reaction in Sweden is not for everyone to get arms, but to remove the guns and the semi-automatic weapons that are in Swedish society. Now, that's a universal reaction across Sweden, across the political parties, and across Europe too. We want to remove guns from our society, and that's already a successful policy if you look at the results. And I think the Swedish tragedy is just going to reinforce that. So I think we're at a real fork in the road moment for America and for Europe. And of course, not just Europe. It's, we have I think we need different sort of allies in the next few years. Allies based on values of solidarity, fairness, equality, justice. Be they Canadians, be they Mexicans. I think Europe's going to be looking to actually fill some of the gap that America is leaving to build a progressive alliance internationally. Like I said, I'm not taking it for granted, but I think we realize in Europe now what we've built up since the Second World War. And by when certainly not going to lose it to a bully, and we know we've got to build on it. And hopefully, what we've achieved in Europe, or what we will go on to achieve in the next 5-10 years, will be an inspiration for our American friends, colleagues, and comrades that you can win this battle. I mean, who would have believed really 1939 that we could have beaten the Nazis? But we did. Ordinary people, in the end, secured freedom in Europe with the assistance of the Americans and, of course, the Russians. In the end, and I say this to Audra and others all the time, in the end, it comes back to Jordan's point, the oligarchs are the few, we are the many, and in the end, we will prevail. And that's certainly the defined tone I'm picking up from people all across Europe. I was speaking to students on Friday night from the Netherlands, here in Brussels, 25 students from a range of political backgrounds, but they're all defiant that they will fight to defend European values.
So I actually have a quick question for Mark, being the historian that you are on all of this. My question would be, do you think if it came down to it, obviously when it came down to it, the Americans and all the allies came in to help, albeit pretty significantly late and way after we should have during the time of Hitler and the Nazis. Do you think that the United States will alienate so many people that when it comes down to it and we need to help, will they still help?
I think, like I said, it depends on the values, really. I mean, I think that this really is a fork in the road, and the Americans, the government, we're not going to, lose faith in the American people or the American ideals. Many of us have, as I said, friends and family there. But if the American government turns on us, we will turn on them. And, we will support our allies and friends based on values. But we're not going to support the Americans who are taking a fascistic turn. Absolutely not. Macron is already threatening to put troops into Greenland to support the right of the Greenland people for self-autonomy, and quite right too. No one wants war and the conflict or death and destruction, but from time to time, Europeans have to defend our values, and maybe that time is coming, Amanda. I mean, there's no automatic right for America to gain the support or trust or trade of Europe. I mean, we can't believe he's threatening to attack a NATO member. Yeah. I mean, how crazy is that? So no, we will draw a line and we will defend not just our interests, but our global values that we all believe in. And I think we're really serious about that. I think he's grossly underestimating how passionately we feel about the values that we've built up in Europe in the last 80 years. Never going back to 1939, 45, never ever.
I think that's part of the strategy, Mark. I think it's part to nationalize the force of America and then form some sort of Russian alliance. I think that's what's going to happen. Because literally he's ready to invade Canada over minerals. It's completely delusional. Heather,
I mean, I do say to my American friends, like, why do you fight the Cold War if you're just so keen to jump into bed with the KGB who are currently running Russia? I mean, it's extraordinary. And of course, they just say to me, Mark, what was the Cold War?
Yeah.
Have people forgotten? But yeah, as I said, it is, as Audra's saying, it's an extraordinary situation. He likes strong men, so I guess, yeah, he could well end up in bed, maybe not literally, maybe, I don't know, with Putin. The irony.
Heather.
Yeah, I think a big problem we have that's going to complicate this, to Mark's point about values, is that Americans don't really have any unified values at this point. Like, everyone is very all over the place. Since I think COVID hit, we have really drawn into our hyper individualistic nature. Everybody has a different set of values. We have alternative facts. Alternative facts. And at the same time that all of this has happened, we have had critical thinking, reading skills, math skills completely drop off the charts. I mean, less than half of Americans can read above a 6th grade level. So it's hard to have values when you can't read above a 6th grade level. 54% of Americans cannot read above a 6th grade level. And then the other thing that's happening also that we're dealing with is all of this climate-fueled disruption here in the United States. That's not to say it's not happening elsewhere, but it's particularly difficult for us to deal with because you have so many people that, back to values, they don't even believe in climate change. And their house is flooding. They're losing their home, or their house is burning down. Here near Oxnard, we had a flood last year, and we had a fire a couple months ago next door in Camarillo, and it has destroyed so many homes. And the people whose homes were destroyed, the sentiment I'm hearing the most is, well, yeah, this wasn't climate change though. Hello? So to Mark's point about values, I think our problem is we don't share any values with our neighbors as much as maybe 20, 30 years ago. And so I would not blame, for example, Europe or NATO countries for not defending us, because we don't, this is who we are. Sorry, it's true. I'm not saying that's who I am. I'm saying this is who Americans are overall. Yeah.
I don't think the lack of issues and values are an American thing. I think that's globally. And I think what that is also like a loss of religious values as well. So when people don't replace religion with some source of spiritual purpose and higher purpose to their life, then you just are void and you drop down and you don't find values valuable in your life to define, right? Unless you're like working or somebody's mentoring you or somebody's guiding you into that process. Leslie.
Yeah, I wanted to just take something that Mark and Heather said. Mark was saying that eventually there's going to be a line in the sand that our allies are not going to cross. This may be inflammatory, but I think that needs to happen for the people to wake up and decide to put down the individualistic, ideals that we have and band together and work together through this.
I like it. Christina, welcome. Happy you could join us. Unmute yourself. And hi welcome back. Nice to have the resident psychologist here on the pod tonight. You can end our call and soothe us all into some sort of betterment for our nervous systems.
I think that'd be better for you to do. You're more on the, that kind of side of things. But hi everyone, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, Audra. I'm an American living in the Netherlands, and I wanted to know specifically. I have this question for Mark, because Mark was talking about World War II for a bit, and I don't know if there's any other World War II buffs here, but something that I've noticed recently, or that I've been thinking about, is the rise of the far right, specifically in Germany, and the age group. The age group that is most voting for them tends to be 18, 19 to 25-year-olds. And I was talking to someone the other day about this. I was just speculating, do they think that this group carries more of this sentiment, kind of akin to the if we were to make an analogy about America cozying up to Russia, and like, did you forget about the Cold War? Well, I wonder if these kids are the first, I call them kids even though they're young adults, are the first generation of people to not have living ancestors from World War II. And maybe would you consider that? Do you think that that's part of it?
Yeah, absolutely, Christina. I think that's the thing. I think 10% of Germans now apparently don't really know much about the Holocaust, for example. The level of attachment to the horror of the Second World War is diminishing as the generations die out. The most recent generations, you should say, have less attachment. But I personally think it's something else. I think that the younger generation are just pissed off with our version of social democracy or capitalism as well. Like, it may be good for overall, particularly for my generation, but it's not good for young people in Europe, and we've got to fix that. The housing crisis in the Netherlands is a good example, but it's pretty bad in Germany as well. All the evidence suggests, though, that, and I'm not again being complacent, that these younger people are flirting with the AfD, not because they're Nazis or neo-Nazis, but because they just want to protest. That should be a cause for complacency. Quite the reverse, but I think it's not evidence of a sort of a political turn to the far right in Germany. I think it's a failure of, as we see, of the German economy post-war boom to sustain the sort of social compact between the generations and between the classes. That's breaking down. That's why I'm hopeful, particularly actually ironically because of Musk's intervention, that young people will wake up and realize, as Jordan said, this is about class consciousness in Germany. You need to change the tectonic place in the German class society again to provide solidarity between the classes and through the generations. And that this flirtation with the AfD would have been a brief one. But as I said, definitely not complacent, Christina. I may be wrong, and this could be the new rise of the far right, led by younger people in Germany, because we've seen it elsewhere across Europe. It's mainly the older people that have been flirting with the far right, not universally, but the recent elections in the German Länder, yes, it's been led by younger people, and I think we've got elections in just a few weeks' time. We'll find out.
Do you think that this, in part, is their way of being subversive, because they, as you said, it's their way of protesting, but just their way of kind of being anti-establishment?
Yeah, and I think it probably goes to what's happened. There's links between what's happening in Europe and America. The social democrats, particularly the social democrats in Germany, but like the Democrats in America, are no longer the progressive force that they need to be to address some of these systemic failures of modern capitalism. Be it wages, housing, opportunity in terms of career. People just feel left behind, and the system's rigged against them. And the social democrats seem to be flailing around, failing to answer those challenges. So I think that's really so. But the answer is actually, it's in plain sight. Social democrats and Democrats in America have got to get radical, got to get progressive, got to start answering some of these challenges. Give you one example. Every person should have the right to housing. I mean, it's 2025. How can we not provide housing for all at an affordable rate? And the social democrats in Germany and elsewhere have got to start adopting, I think they're common sense. They're not even radical or not that socialistic, just common sense policies like that, Christina. And until they do, I think Germany's going to be very, very vulnerable. But as I said, Trump's intervention and Musk is president, is deputy president, ironically may actually save the Social Democrats from a hiding in a few weeks' time.
Just sliding back into my spacesuit here.
You're off to Mars with Musk.
We are at the hour mark, and I appreciate everyone's dialogue here. I love it. I absolutely love talking about these topics. In my article that coincides, I'll include some of the astro behind some of the things that we've cited. A lot of it has to do with the Uranus energy that is very predominant this year and coming through the 2025 chart. And Uranus is here to represent things to just fuck shit up. It's very Aquarian itself. And so it's to be innovative. So this is where we find these opportunities in the dark spots. At the moment, a lot of people in my network are saying, where do I go? Where do I sign up? What do I do? And a lot of that is local activation. So people like Jordan and Leslie and Heather that are here and Amanda, they're already doing a lot in their local communities. Brian is a homesteading dad. He's been nomadic since 2020, is it, Brian? I think, with his family traveling abroad. So I really do think that there's a big threat with the U.S. borders with Canada and Mexico. And the pushback that you have now from the Mexican president is really nice to see. But we have another party coming in March that's to be secured while Justin Trudeau is kind of just in the waiting at the moment. So who knows what's going to come and play with Canada's strong arm against the U.S. as well. But what we see is the U.S. is definitely in this isolated place. And when that happens, you're setting yourself up for terrorist activity as well. So I kind of feel and sense that also happening and growing and spreading in with the Arab Spring collective issues that are growing in Europe and in the Middle East as well. So when is the French elections, Mark? Is that happening this year? Macaroon, when is he due?
No, I think that's next year. It may even be the year after that. So he's still got a couple of years to run. I mean, again, that's a bit like Germany, really no cause for complacency whatsoever, because obviously Le Pen and the basically our fascists are on the rise there too. But that's next year. However, as I said, I think what's going on in America will be their downfall, their demise, because French people will just say, and they did recently in their parliamentary elections, that the left rallied in the end to defeat the fascists, and I think that will happen this time as well.
My French friend just messaged me earlier this week. She's like, why haven't you guys started to light any stuff on fire yet? Come on, where is your spirit? And here's the other thing that I'm kind of predicting in the months to come with Trump's backlash and him throwing down his strong arm is that he will start to incite social order in his growing police state against the protest community. So we're all practicing our First Amendments, and people that actually have time in their lives to go do public protesting, I think that these will be shut down quite easily and or muted, and or we're already seeing this globally. They had a big protest in Berlin and you didn't see very much media coverage on it. It's happening also in France, and these things are being shut down. So the media right now is a huge influence and not a positive one. And you'll see platforms like Substack where you've got both voices, because it's purely uncensored here. So you've got both voices. It's important to stay engaged to see what the right is actually doing, promoting, speaking about. So there's a lot that you can't tune out and turn out and plug out of. And that's why these kind of communities are super vital. So you don't have to be responsible for taking it all in. You can just text your friend, hi, I'm melting down this week. I can't even absorb the headlines. This is how Christina and I talk daily. So community is so important right now. Who's next? I'm lost. Where are we in the queue? Jordan, you want to talk?
To point out that Luigi's trial begins on February 18th. So my friends abroad, keep an eye on that, because that has obviously been buried in the news cycle ever since the whole shift in TikTok. I don't know about you guys, but I've heard barely anything about Luigi. So keep an eye on his trial.
Absolutely. That's one to watch. The other thing I was going to note is this week, Wednesday, Thursday is the full moon, and it's in Leo, the opposite sign of Aquarius. Leo is an important sign because it's all about the show. It's all about the form of creative expression. And it's Trump's rising sign. So when we have our rising sign placement, that's how people perceive us to be. So we very much perceive him to be this Leo energy, but he is the shadow side of Leo energy. He is like, if I'm explaining Leo energy, you have Mustafa from the Lion King, and then you have Scar, whatever the brother is that's like friends with all the hyenas. That's Trump, all right? So mind your P's and Q's this week, Americans, because there might be some insightful behaviors that Trump is going to pull off some more shenanigans and throw in some more low blows. Okay, are we ready to wrap up? Okay, can I just ask everyone to set up? Because I want to put you back into your bodies. So we have that nice somatic experience. If you want to shut off your cameras, you can as well.
This is why I wasn't closing out, Audra. I don't do the woo-woo shit. That's for you. You do.
So when you set up tall, you set up straight, you plug your sitting bones from your pelvic girdle, you plug those into the chair or this seat that you're sitting on, and then roll your shoulders back like you're holding an apple between your two shoulder blades and stretch your shoulders apart a little bit and stretch your head out and up like a puppet tear is holding you from the crown of the head. Drop your shoulders away from the ears. Relax your tongue. Part your lips. Open the mouth a little bit and take a big breath in. And then exhale through the mouth. Then do that again and then sigh really, really heavy on the exhale out. So inhale in and then exhale. And one more time because it's super fun. Inhale in and then exhale out. And then just hold there with your eyes closed for just a moment. That's the liminal space. Open the eyes. You can turn your cameras on if you'd like to say goodbye. Thank you, guys. I appreciate every and each and one of you helping grow my projects and special interests. And keep on resisting, keep on elevating and rising above. Namaste.